This is unusual, but go ahead, Bryant.
Sure. This is Brian Anderson, and I would like to make a request for a bill. The number is RS 2529, and the bill essentially it ensures patients have access to affordable prescriptions through the 340B drug program.
Committee, any questions? Any objection? He's a citizen. Just a regular citizen, not a lobbyist, just wanted a bill. So any objection? Seeing none, we'll make the bill request. Thank you, Bryant. I'm sorry, I turned my mic off. I have a couple of bill requests. One is trying to get it, RS 2977. It's on elevator maintenance. It would exempt people that have contracts with a certified elevator company. Some of our churches are running into problems because of legislation passed last year. Any questions? Any objection? Seeing none, we'll make the request. Another request I have is the Dane Hansen. Some of you are familiar with them. They want a sales tax exemption from Northwest Kansas. Committee, any questions? Any objection? We'll make the bill request. Point of personal privilege, Senator Kirshen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to, and this guy calling with me today for the day will be Maddox Haar, and he's from Cheney. He's the 8th grade, and he'll be watching what we're doing here today. So thanks for coming.
You stand. Welcome to the Tax Committee. Thank you. Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 pages with me today. I have in the very back corner, we have Paige and Evan Brand from the Colwich-Andell area. Paige is a freshman at Andell High School, which some of you may know had the longest winning football streak in America up until this year. We're very depressed about it because of Cheney. Cheney beat us. Yeah, he's shaking his head proud. And then Evan is at St. Mark's, also in the Remick School District. So glad to have him here.
Would you please stand? And welcome to the Tax Committee. Thank you. Committee, we also have some special guests. Lecturer Bill Viander, would you please stand with your class and welcome.
We have some dome people in the dome tour, so if you see people filing in here a little bit later.
Well, they're from the Washburn, what class in Washburn?
This is the Intro to State and Local Government, Political Science Department.
Wonderful, great introduction. So welcome to the Tax Committee. So committee, will turn our attention to the order of business now. We do have some hearings. We'll continue with the one from yesterday. Amelia, will you give us the overview on Senate Bill 484, I think. Is that the right one? No. 82, 482. Sorry, guys, we have several hearings today, 3. So, okay, there's my agenda. Wonderful.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill number 482 relates to tax levy rates, and it would amend KSA 792988 to provide that county clerks are not required to send the revenue neutral rate notices to property owners of exempt property. So those properties that would not be receiving, they would not be charged taxes. So, and the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Well, committee, our first conferee is Kelly Arnold via WebEx. Welcome to the committee, Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Kelly Arnold, I am here as Sedgwick County Clerk. Want to testify in support of Bill 482. It is the role of the county clerk to calculate the revenue neutral rate and also mail out the revenue neutral rate letters. In working in this, I have found an area where I believe we can save money to our taxpayers and be able to mail just a few less letters. In Sedgwick County, we mail just under 200,000 revenue neutral rate letters. And of those 200,000, almost 10,000 of those go to tax exempt property owners. These owners are cities, local governments, the military, federal, churches, those type of property owners. So they receive a bill which basically has zeros in it. I'd like to have an opportunity for county clerks not to mail those out, to not only not confuse those that are receiving the bill, but also save taxpayer dollars. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for bringing this idea to us. I think it's a good one. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Committee, I'll turn your attention to written testimony from Mark Toom, the Kansas Association of Realtors. There are no opponents or no neutral. Is there anyone else that would like to testify for the bill? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 482. And we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 483. No, 453. Boy, it's Monday today, right? No, thank you. Thanks, Amelia.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill number 453 relates to the Homestead Property Tax Refund Act, and more specifically to our new, what we sometimes refer to as Homestead 2, or the increased property tax claim provisions. Currently, 794508A provides a homestead property tax refund for certain seniors and disabled veterans calculated based on the increase in property tax over their base year amount on their claimant's homestead. And that first took effect, as you recall, in tax year 2022 with a first base year of 2021. The bill before you today would amend that statute to exclude Social Security from the definition of household income. As you recall, I think maybe I've briefed you before, the current definition of household income in homestead includes 50% of Social Security payments, excluding disability payments. And so this bill would change that for this provision only, that those Social Security payments would not be included in that calculation of homestead income, or of household income. The bill would also increase the maximum household income for eligibility from $50,000 to $80,000. It would also provide that that income eligibility provision would not apply to disabled veterans. The bill would also increase the maximum appraised value of a homestead for the base year for eligibility from $350,000 to $500,000. It would also add an annual adjustment to that appraised value beginning with base year 2022. The bill would also remove the claimant's age requirement for eligibility, removing the 65 years or older requirement. And then in addition, it would provide that these amendments shall be applied retroactively and extend the deadline to file claims to April 15th of 2025. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book, and I would be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee questions? So the main difference of this is the bill that we were working and an amendment that was made in committee, is that correct? That would remove the age limit to 65.
I have to go back and look at our numbers and make sure the numbers match. I mean,
Right.
we had several different
Iterations, but
yes, but the main difference
is that we have not seen is that it would allow it for all low income. The age limit is removed.
Correct. And I know page 4 may look a little strange with kind of the striking and adding of language, but because of the removal of the age requirement of 65 years or older, there's no need to also have the specific reference to disabled veteran. But we do then, this bill does exclude the disabled veteran from the income eligibility requirement. That provision, it remains here, is in this version.
Okay, thank you. Which is what passed out of CCR 8 last year.
That provision, correct.
Yes, thank you. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Amelia. Committee, we only have one conferee. It's written testimony only. Spencer Duncan, the League of Municipalities. No other proponents, no opponents, and no neutral. Is there anybody else that would like to testify on the legislation? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 453. And I would draw your attention, committee, we do have a fiscal note on this, what removing the age limit would do to the legislation that we were working in committee. So, committee, I'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 484. Amelia, do you mind an overview on that?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill number 484 relates to property tax and would provide exemptions for certain personal property, including watercraft, marine equipment, off-road vehicles, motorized bicycles, and certain trailers. Specifically, the bill would establish a new property tax exemption beginning with tax year 2025 for any off-road vehicle that is not operated upon any highway, any motorized bicycle, electric assisted scooter, electric personal assistive mobility device, and motorized wheelchair, as those terms are defined in Chapter 8. Any trailer having a gross weight of 2,000 pounds or less that is used exclusively for personal use, and any marine equipment. And if you look at the bill, there are definitions of some of these terms. Some of the definitions are referred back to Chapter 8 of our Kansas statutes, and then other ones do provide some definitions, such as what an off-road motorcycle or what marine equipment includes. The bill would also amend 795501, our statute addressing watercraft, and it would exempt all watercraft from property tax on and after January 1 of 2025. The bill would also amend 79213 to exclude these two types of exemptions from the State Board of Tax Appeals application process requirements. So the county appraisers would be able to administer these without involving the Board of Tax Appeals unless there was a disagreement. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book, and I would be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee questions? Thank you. Committee, our first conferee is Sean Robertson. Welcome back to the Tax Committee, Sean, and thank you for bringing this idea to us. Appreciate it.
Got it. Sean Robertson, Kansas County Appraisers Association. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to come in support of this bill. Anytime that there is an exemption ask in front of you or any legislators, I think it's appropriate to ask the questions about doesn't this shrink the tax base or transfer the burden to others? However, if you'll stick with me a little bit, I'll explain why this may be an exception to that. So I'd like to point out three reasons that we stand in support of this. Number one, for example, a small trailer that you can see at any farm supply store or home improvement store, let's just say $1,500 that you could buy. If you have a farm and you're hauling a few square bales, that would be exempt from taxation due to being agricultural use. If you have a small lawn care business and you're hauling the lawnmowers, that would be exempt from taxation because it's commercial personal property. If you are simply hauling your junk to the dump or going and getting firewood, it is taxable. And we'd like to see that reconsidered. The second thing is, I've labeled it in my testimony as statutory compliance. A couple of years ago, late 2021, there was a ruling from the Board of Tax Appeals that a side-by-side vehicle, one of the common models would be a Polaris RZR, went in front of the Board of Tax Appeals in order to get an exemption as farm use, which seems appropriate. The Board of Tax Appeals had determined that because it had 2 seats, it didn't matter what it was used for, it was taxable. What this did was put the appraisers in the unenviable position of, do we now follow the Board of Tax Appeals ruling and put all of these back on the tax rolls or on the tax rolls when previously exempt? Or do we take the stance, as I have heard from a couple of county councilors, that that ruling applied to that specific piece in that county, and these others, you possibly stand in violation of the statute and ignore? And that has put us in a really tough position. We would like to see these included as exempt, regardless of the use. The third thing, and I think this is the biggest one, okay. The third thing I think is the biggest one is in many counties, the cost of discovering, listing, valuing these items is greater than the tax revenue received. I'll point to Saline County, where I'm the county appraiser, not only because I have that information obviously at hand, but we're in ballpark the 10th largest county and a good mix of properties. So I think this would be an example that would be kind of in the middle. For these personal property items, the total tax that the county receives is $30,000, and on the watercraft, $22,000. We have 2 full-time people tracking those things. So the cost savings of the labor associated with the discovery and valuation, the cost of printing and mailing renditions, the cost of printing and mailing valuation notices, the cost of printing and mailing tax statements can all be eliminated, in addition to, although maybe a small cost, those people that go in front of the Board of Tax Appeals in order to ask for an exemption there. Those could all be eliminated. So I think in the case of these properties, these personal properties, the actual cost savings at the local level would offset any lack of revenue from those items. So I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sean. Committee, any questions? Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sean, thanks for being here today. Let me just ask you a question, and I'm kind of ignorant on this, but like where I live, I see ATVs blowing up and down my county highway every day that I live on. And I see them like in downtown Baldwin. And I guess what I'm wondering is that I overall, I definitely appreciate the thought that's gone into this, and, you know, but I guess what I'm wondering is that are we coming to a place in the state where we're basically encouraging people tacitly, if nothing else, basically to start, you know, basically just transporting themselves via ATVs, okay, and basically potentially just not paying their fair share of infrastructure, I know this is kind of a theoretical question, but I guess that's just why I wonder about this. Would this type of policy push people to buy more and more of those types of vehicles, just make them like their transportation, their daily drivers? If you're rural, I mean, why not? I mean, I'm just curious. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think that's entirely possible. I think in these small towns, that's pretty common. I think that the small areas like that should be left up to those local authorities to determine what's legal or not to be on the streets, and should be taken care of that way. But yeah, I think that it could possibly move that direction, as you're saying.
And once again, I don't know how many ATVs are out there running around, but I'm just, once again, from a taxation perspective, I mean, once again, the county would be assessing that with everything else. It'd be going towards paying for county services and whatnot. And I just want to throw it out there and just kind of get your sense on that. Let me put it this way. Would there be any appreciable dent to a county's taxable base if that were to occur?
I certainly can't speak for all 105 counties, but the ones of which I am aware, no. As I said, it would, the costs associated with taxing those items are oftentimes greater than the tax money that's brought in. So the exemption, although yes, you wouldn't have that revenue, you wouldn't have that cost. And anytime you're cutting costs or budget at the local level, that's actually a tax break for everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I would remind the committee, this is more than just ATVs, golf carts, other scooters, electric. Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. Senator Reddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if, so these, the property taxes, I will ask for more information later, but I do know we've seen a lot of accidents with motorized bicycles in our community to the point where we had to get rid of a contract we had with a e-scooter company, let's say. And police are very much involved. And in our community, the police department is financed completely on property taxes. Do you see, what I would like to see is actually what is the total amount of revenue and what is the expenditures from the appraiser side that send it out? So those are two pieces of information I would like for this. And I'm just thinking, though they may not be utilizing our infrastructure, do you see where they might need other types of enforcement, whether it's in the water or it's in other areas where we have motorized vehicles?
Although a little bit out of my purview as an appraiser, yeah, I think that as I mentioned to Senator Holland, that should be taken care of by some sort of local enforcement. But I don't know how that would really apply to the property taxation of those items, but yeah.
Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Thanks, Sean. We have no other proponents, no opponents, one written neutral. Roger Ham, would you like to testify or?
It would, I'm glad to be before you this morning. The information that I provided you in written form was just kind of a background about these kinds of items, and then some of the other items that are not on your list that are still in this, what we call subclass 6, this other not elsewhere classified. And so in that, you'll see kind of the idea that these make up we figure about 85% of the total value of those items in subclass 6. And in the last page of my written testimony, you see kind of what we estimate the exemption is for watercraft, which is about 32 million. And then we have about 92 million for this type of property that you see listed in this bill with this exemption on it. So that's kind of the main focus of this particular testimony for this morning. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer some of those.
Committee, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Roger, can you help clarify for me? So all these Kansans out there that have ATVs or golf carts, they drive around town, are they all supposed to be tagged then? I mean, unless it's $750 or more or less? I mean, help me understand. You're telling me that every ATV out there that people are driving around are supposed to be paying property taxes today?
If it's not expressly exempt, based on what you heard from Sean, if it's not exempt as commercial machinery and equipment, perhaps, or if it's not exempt as farm machinery and equipment, well, it would be taxable property in this subclass. And there is no registration for these vehicles because they're not to be driven on. Yeah, they're off-road stuff. So
it's
yes.
kind of self-reported?
Pardon?
Is it kind of self-reported?
They are self-reported to the county appraiser. Yes, they're supposed to be listed on or before March 15th to the county appraiser. Yes.
And the penalty is very stiff on these.
Very stiff on any property that's not listed, yeah, on timely.
Yes, and I did have a constituent that called me, her ATV property taxes are more than her home on her property taxes. What the committee may not realize is they take a national average for the ATVs. It's not a statewide average on those valuations. So Senator Holland.
I'll just be real quick. So Roger, as far as the breakdown of specific types of craft, do you have any sort of dollars specifically for ATVs that aren't excluded?
Now what?
Do you have any sort of tax valuation? with the value of the ATVs that are not basically specifically excluded because of farm use or anything like that?
No, we wouldn't have any idea about how much that would be. They don't have to report those items, so they wouldn't be listed, or we wouldn't have a.
When you mentioned the 92 million, would they be part of that 92 million, or you just don't know what? That's just everything that's reported.
Those would be included, those that are taxable would be included in that amount. But the ones that are exempt, we wouldn't have any idea about how
And
much
they
that
are
would.
all getting reported, the ones that aren't exempt.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Baumgartner.
So I guess I'm just curious, is that the standard in the state that every county is for ATVs, they're using the national average?
In my testimony, you'll also see what we have for prescribed guides for those kinds of properties. And so to be consistent, so that the counties can do consistent work out there, we do prescribe guides for those kind of vehicles. So yes, there'd be a guide specific for those kind of ATVs, off-road vehicles, and those kinds of things.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on Senate Bill 484? Seeing no one, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 484. Committee, we do have some time. I'm going to turn your attention to legislation that we heard last year. Senate Bill 58. Is that okay? Amelia, will you give us an overview of Senate Bill 58? So committee, we had more members of Mr. Fyander's lecture class join us from Washburn. We're happy to have you guys to the tax committee. I hope you enjoyed your little jaunt to the top of the Capitol. And would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you for joining us today. Amelia, will you give us an overview? And just for your guys' information, we're in a 2-year bill cycle in the legislature. We had a hearing last year on Senate Bill 58. It is a sales tax exemption for disabled veterans in Kansas. And we are going to take a look at that legislation now and debate and possibly work the bill. Thank you, Amelia.
Yes, Madam Chair, as you stated, Senate Bill 58 is a bill from last session. It did have a hearing in this committee on March 9th of 2023. The bill itself would provide a new sales tax exemption for certain purchases of property and services by disabled veterans of the Armed Forces of the United States beginning January 1 of 2024. And the sales qualifying for the exemption would be limited to $50,000 per year per eligible person. The definition of disabled veteran is included in subsection A, and it includes a 100% disability rating. And there are provisions for applying for the exemption identification number for an eligible person with the Department of Revenue. And I would be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a bill from last year with dates that need to be updated. I've actually got 3 balloons here I would like to combine into one motion, and I'm going to ask staff to hand those out. The committee, they're fairly simple. By the way, to begin with, I will just bring the committee's attention to the fact that you will see the bill sponsors, 4 of the bill sponsors are on this committee. And so I'd say that the committee is certainly.
So if I may, Senator, I think we won't have any trouble getting this legislation out of committee.
Well, I think, but the first amendment that, or one of the amendments that will be handed out, just hand up, I'm sorry. One of the amendments you will see is a simple date change. Rather than being on line 6, January the 1st, 2024, to give the Department of Revenue time to have everything in place and ready to go, and to allow our disabled veterans to be aware of this program and to apply for the exemption. You will see that there is a small balloon to change the date from January 1, 2024 to July 1, 2025. There is also another balloon that adds, because in the legislation, the sales of tangible personal property or services are exempt, or except for sales of motor vehicles are exempt. I wanted to add also alcoholic beverages and tobacco, and I realize that there's some discussion as to whether alcoholic beverages and tobacco have a sales tax, but this just makes certain in statute and clarifies that it is not our desire for disabled veterans to have a sales tax exemption for motor vehicles, alcoholic beverages, and tobacco. And the final amendment is a little bit longer, but still, it's, to my way of thinking, just to clarify that this sales tax exemption is for our disabled veterans, but it is not to be used for them if they have some type of a side business or any kind of a business. So you will notice that in the balloon that the most important part is not used for the production of income. So it wouldn't allow them, if they are a cabinet maker or whatever, to purchase lumber and supplies that they're going to then sell the cabinets. So they wouldn't have that exemption because of being a disabled veteran for the production of income. So, Madam Chairman, I would like, even though I realize that we have 3 different balloons here, to combine them all into one motion, because I don't think any of the 3 are controversial in any way, shape, or form, and I'll be glad to answer questions. And if you wish me to make the motion at this time, I will, or I'll wait.
It's at your leisure, Senator.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we adopt the 3 balloons to amend Senate Bill 58.
Is there a second? I'll make the second then. It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Tyson. Discussion on the motion. Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate these amendments. I understand that the Department of Revenue will need to get things rolling for this. It's unfortunate that veterans would need to wait until July 1st of 2025, but I see it as what it is. With regard to the exemption of motor vehicles, there was some discussion about a vehicle for a veteran that was 100% disabled. They needed to purchase a vehicle that had a specific lift or that required handbrakes or changes to accommodate their disability. Did we learn any information about whether there was any type of funds, grants, or sales tax diversion on those types of vehicles or that type of service?
So, Senator, I have helped a constituent with that issue. I don't know what program it was, but they did qualify. I do know there is assistance, but I'm not sure if it applies to all veterans, all disabled veterans. We don't know at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Senator Baumgardner.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, do we know from the Department of Revenue, will you be able to have this up and ready by July 1,
2025.
2025?
Kathleen, thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we will do our best to have it ready for July 1 of 2025. We've got to figure out how we're going to do a specific card size, and we've kind of looked at that last year. We probably will need to work with the retailers to determine kind of what they're going to have to see in order for the sales to be exempt.
I think that should be pretty easy. I know when I was a teacher at the high school, the school district issued a card and I used that. Walmart and other areas, other retailers, when the purchases were made for the school district. So I know they do it. So hopefully Department of Revenue can get moving on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I know we did have several questions when we looked at this legislation last year. Are there any other issues or concerns that you might have?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Committee, Eddie is checking on streamline compliance if this does become an issue with it. Eddie, do you mind?
So there are streamlined states that have something like this. I know Oklahoma has this program, has a comparable program. I don't want to say that it's identical. And Oklahoma is a streamlined state. I can't say with certainty off the top of my head if any of these specific provisions would pose a streamline issue, but there's none that I am immediately aware of, and I know that conceptually it can be done within the confines of streamline.
Great, thank you, Eddie. Committee, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. After having hearings on other legislation regarding the level of disability, I have one more balloon to hand out. It's, again, straightforward and simple, but I still will ask staff to hand the balloon out. It would change the disability rate from 100% to 50%. And again, this is something that's easily determined because the United States Department of Veterans Affairs knows and has on record and provides military veterans with a card showing what their disability is. And this would include a few individuals. Why did I pick 50%? Just because that's similar to what other legislation is. It would be a shame if we had someone who was 90% or 80% disabled who would be excluded because their classification of disability is lower by just a small percentage amount than 100. So I dropped it down to 50%. So that's what this balloon is that you will have in front of you. I have asked, and Madam Chairman, I don't know if we have it. I have not been given a fiscal note to see how much this would change the fiscal note. And the fiscal note that we had with the bill, by the way, was based off of if every 100% disabled veteran spent the maximum $50,000 in sales taxable exemptions. The fiscal note at that time was 20, which we all know not all disabled veterans will spend $50,000 a year on eligible sales tax purchases. But I'm going to go ahead and make a motion for this amendment, and then I still would be interested to know if the department has a fiscal note. Do you want me to? Maybe we should
Senator,
get a fiscal note.
the department does have a fiscal note, so. Sorry, Kathleen.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I was going to send you an email here at lunch, but it would be approximately 75, 76 million. And again, the assumption would be that all of the disabled veterans would be up to the cap of 50,000. And I believe we had maybe 8,000 veterans with 100% disability. This would go up to around 31,300. So 31,300 disabled veterans would be able to take advantage of this.
So this may be a question for research, I'm not sure. Once a military person is disabled, classified disabled, does their disability increase as they age to where they gradually become 100% disabled, or?
I'll check with the veterans folks, but I do believe that testimony earlier this year on a House Tax Committee bill on a different topic indicated that disability ratings can change over time for veterans, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen and Eddie. Okay. Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate the fiscal note. For the committee's benefit, I looked back at my testimony, and I had in 2020, this is 24, so it would have been 2022, I had gotten information, this is not that they did a lot of research, but their best guess from revenue was that most Kansans spend $60,000 a year, and of that $60,000 a year that most Kansans spend, $25,000 of that is sales taxable. So I would contend that the fiscal note would be at least half and potentially less because of the fact that average Kansan spends $25,000 a year in Kansas on sales taxable items. So again, I appreciate the fiscal note because I had asked for it, and we want them to give us information. If it was fully utilized at 50,000, which it won't, we all know it won't, that would be the fiscal note, but I'm going to continue to contend that the fiscal note will be much less on sales tax exemption.
Is that a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will make a motion that we do adopt this balloon and reduce the amount from 50% disabled to, I'm sorry, from 100% disabled to 50% or greater disabled.
It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Baumgardner. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're back on Senate Bill 58. Senate. Committee, we're about out of time today. We do have other discussion and other bills we need to work. We will try to get you a list before Monday so that you're prepared on those. Do you want to go ahead and work, put the contents 21, 24, 21? I think we could get that finished really quickly. Just for clarification, we have not voted that bill out of committee. We are holding it over in case we need to make a couple other changes to it. So, committee, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have a bill that passed out of our committee in 23, and my understanding it came back to the committee, Senate Bill 80. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so I would like to see us move forward with Senate Bill 80 and to make things simpler for the process. I don't know exactly how you want to handle the motion, and we'll need to know what Senate Bill 80 is. I realize that.
So we have a handout on it because we started working Senate Bill 80 the other day. And just to be clear, you're not starting from where we were at the other day. You're starting from what was kicked out of this committee last year. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I just don't want to confuse people because we have 2 or 3 versions of that legislation floating around. So would you like to go over the parameters that's in that as Amelia gets the handout?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Senate Bill 80 relates to the homestead property tax refund, and you will see when you get the bill, as it was amended by Senate committee in 2023 last year, so we're moving back to the bill as this committee has already put its stamp of approval on the legislation. So it would, the household income would be changed. No, it is not changed. Okay,
We're going to run out of time here. Sorry, committee. So Senator Peck.
Well, to get the process moving forward, I'm going to make a motion that we strip the contents of House Bill 2421 and insert the contents of Senate Bill 80 as it passed out of Senate committee in 2023. And then we will
Take a
see
motion.
what we can do from there.
Okay. So committee, you've heard the motion. It's been moved by Senator Peck, seconded by Senator Baumgartner. All those, any discussion on the motion? Senator Reddy.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know what the bill we are putting into it is.
It was a bill that went into law last year, so it's a shell. It went into law, so we don't need the bill. So we're using the bill to put in this legislation.
What was it, though? Okay, all
I
right,
think it was Grant County, wasn't it? It was Grant County.
okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion, do you want to be recorded? Okay. Motion carries. We're back on the bill, and we're about out of time. So committee, we will pick this up Monday morning. We do have one hearing Monday. It's on salt. And we will work legislation as much as we possibly can Monday and Tuesday. Committee, thank you for your work. We're adjourned.